I did prove that I'm a motorcyclist. That is my picture. Last summer, I was and a buddy was headed up to South Dakota. Um, After, I know I looked away from all your safety rider coaches. I did look away from the road for a moment. But, we'd been on the same road for about 200 miles. I had not seen a car, animal, or curve. For y'all that have ridden across Kansas and Nebraska, you know what I'm talking about. There's nothing there. And you can see for about 40 or 50 miles ahead of you, which is sometimes a little bit discouraging. It is a pleasure to come talk to you. I do work for the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. One of the duties that I have is I'm the Regional Motorcycle Safety Coordinator. It's not the only job I do. I also oversee the state programs for the state of New Mexico and for the Bureau of Indian Affairs. We actually treat the Bureau of Indian Affairs as a state, which gives me some insight and overview of about 560 tribes across the United States. And it's very interesting working with the tribes. If you think you've got some traffic safety issues in your community, you need to go to some of the tribal reservations and see what they're trying to deal with out there to try to reduce crashes. Patty wanted me to give you a little bit of insight today about what's happening with NHTSA. Anybody that's worked with me, and I think I did miss 1 year, didn't I, Patty? Mm-hmm. I think there was 1 year I wasn't available, but I think I've been to all of them, but maybe one. Yeah, that's right. Better memory than I got. I actually got detailed to the Cash for Clunkers program. I was an investigator going around making sure everybody was doing what they were supposed to do with that program. So I did miss that 1 year, but I've been at all the rest. And anybody that's worked with me knows I'm an advocate for partnership. I've been riding motorcycles since 1974. I ride with the Christian Motorcycle Association. I'm out in the community. I deal with a lot of the bike clubs. So I kind of know that the best way to solve all this problem is not necessarily pushing, law enforcement or laws to address it. We would like for the riders to figure out the best and smartest way to ride safety, and we think that working through the partnership will do that. Unfortunately, sometimes you're not moving them as quick as you can. As we said earlier, the numbers aren't looking real good right now on motorcycle fatalities. We're actually scared we're starting to see a little trend back up after some reductions. Factors being, once again, a lot of our safety and traffic safety is really tied very closely to economics. The more money people have in their pocket, the more gas money they got, then they're out there running. And motorcycles, a lot of times, to most people, that's a luxury item. It's a recreational vehicle. It's not a daily commuter. I know some people do, but like me, I don't commute through Fort Worth in the morning. I don't want to get in that mix of traffic. So I'm strictly a recreational rider, but I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of miles I've ridden. I'm out there. But I think it's important for all of us to work together and to try to figure out what we can do to address motorcycle safety. What Patty wanted me to do is kind of talk about some of the studies and research that we're doing out of our Washington office. In addition to giving money to the states through the program under MAP 21 that Terry talked about, and trust me, we realize that money is woefully not enough. When you talk about in the state of Texas, $300,000 from the federal government to address motorcycle safety, that's probably not enough money to address the motorcycle safety in the city of Austin. And we understand that. But if you go back a few years, I can tell you there was no money coming from the federal government to address motorcycle safety. It was only when the numbers started climbing that Congress looked at it and said, whoa, something's happening here in the motorcycle community. Motorcycling has become popular. A lot more people are riding, and unfortunately, a lot more people are dying. And we don't have to go back many years to be in that situation. I can tell you that TxDOT is very generous in the fact that they put much more money into traffic safety related to motorcycle safety than just that $300,000 or $400,000 to try to address the safety issue. So what I want to do is run through a few of the things that we're doing in Washington to try to address it. We have people up there that run what's called 403 projects, research projects, and they're the ones that go and try to develop the ideas or the programs that will influence motorcycle safety along with all the other deals related to it. Now, what they're doing is they worked with the Motorcycle Safety Foundation on a longitudinal, and I have trouble with that word, so y'all be glad that I got it out the first time. I usually have to get somebody to speak for me on that and spit that one out for me. And with the Motorcycle Safety Foundation, to try to figure out some guidance on improving crash avoidance skills. Now, us that's been riding for a while, we know there's things we can do to avoid crashes, right? Get your head up, look around, be aware, watch your speed, and don't drink and drive, you know. We know that there's things out there that you can do. So what they're trying to do is to develop some type of list of all of those things so that you can start taking those in consideration. Now, I understand there was a little bit of delay in this project, and it got a little bit slow because there was a little bit tick and tack back and forth between MSF and NHTSA on what the evaluation criteria would be. But now it's running along, and so we're hoping actually this project is going to be completed sometime around the winter of 2013. And a lot of the projects that you're going to see today are starting to come to that point where we're going to see something within the next year or two. And that's because they started several years ago when the motorcycle numbers were really up there. Another thing that we're working on is the Motorcycle Law Enforcement Demonstration Project. One of the things that we wanted to do was to be able to engage law enforcement and to help them understand how and what their part they would play in motorcycle safety. That project's supposed to be finished in 2013. One of the things that I know of a lot of the meetings I've been here in the Texas is a lot of people want motorcycle officers to be better at investigating what? Accidents. See, I knew somebody would know that. They want some better understanding on how to investigate a motorcycle crash. And I understand in the state of Texas, I haven't had a chance to go through the class. Has it started yet? The one that's been developed here in the state of Texas?
No, it's going to be online.
Okay, this is going to be an online class. They've developed one here in Texas. And this class that was taught to many law enforcement agencies around the country in the last couple of years through NHTSA, they're actually in the process of developing that to an online class too, so that law enforcement can go on. Hopefully we can get you some continuing education credits for it, because that's what we know for law enforcement. That's always great to count that toward their CEUs. This was a demonstration project from the state of Georgia where they did motorcycle enforcement activities. We're waiting on that to see if they were able to influence that with some direct motorcycle, targeted motorcycle enforcement activities. Another thing we're working on is model national standards for entry-level rider training. I don't know exactly where they're going with this. There's some people that have talked about staged riding, kind of like a graduated driver's license, like young people that come into the system. Texas took a big step within the last couple of years on actually having it mandatory for you to get your motorcycle endorsement to get some driver training. Of course, we advocate driver training. I think it's a great, cheap way to decide if you won't even want to get into motorcycling. I know I went through the training class with somebody, and they thought they wanted to go buy a big Harley Davidson, like, you know, the trend was that kind of going that way. After the second day of riding a motorcycle, 250 in a closed parking lot, you know what they decided? Maybe this isn't for me. And boy, you talk about a, you know, $150, $200 investment compared to a $20,000 motorcycle and everything that goes along with it. Cheap way for people to go out and get their hands on a bike, see what they think, and move on. So they are trying to develop some ideas on what could be put out to the states on what would be that entry-level training. That should be out by sometime in summer 2013. Endorsement of motorcyclists. Okay, I won't embarrass anybody, but who doesn't have, no, I'm not going to do that. What we do know is that there are a number, because we can look at crash statistics and the licensing of those people that are involved in the crashes. And usually, you know, we're talking 20%, give or take 10% of motorcyclists that are not properly licensed to operate the vehicle that they're doing, that they're operating. Now, there's been some states that have taken some different efforts to try to do that. Some of them have taken the list of all the registered motorcycles in the state and sent out letters to the people saying, basically, we know who you are. and we know where you stay, and you need to go get your motorcycle endorsement, okay? And it's had some success, but they're trying to look at what happened in the state of Massachusetts and in the programs they did, and it was kind of like what I just described, to see if it was actually effective in increasing those number of people in getting their actual endorsement through the state. There was a demonstration project that was ran up in some of those northern states, Indiana, Iowa, Massachusetts, and Pennsylvania in 2012 to address impaired driving. Unfortunately, and to me it doesn't make much sense as a rider, unfortunately a lot of people choose to drink and ride. Now, I know this is speaking to a lot of the choir, but does it take more capability, coordination, balance to ride a motorcycle than to drive even a car? Can I get an amen? Amen. All right. So, you know, it doesn't make any sense to me to go out there and get to a level of intoxication that you definitely would not be safe enough to drive an automobile, something that doesn't require balance to necessarily to move around on, and then to go get on a motorcycle. But unfortunately, there's a lot of people do it. And when I talk to motorcycle groups, I said that's a case of when you're not taking care of your brother. If you let somebody you know that's intoxicated get on a motorcycle. As far as I'm concerned, you need to fight them for their keys or do something. But if you care about a brother that's out there riding a motorcycle and you let him leave and you know he's under the influence, you just don't care about that brother very much, because there's a good chance that he may not be safe on that trip. Yes?
Why did they choose Iowa and Massachusetts?
This was probably put out as a request, and these are the states that actually submitted and says we're willing to do it.
Okay.
Most of our 403 research projects, they put out a proposal, and people come to them and says, okay, we're willing to take it on.
Is that Iowa's one with no helmet on?
And they may have, when they selected people, they may have tried to divide it up, some with and some without. National Agenda for Motorcycle Safety. This is a book that we put out several years ago talking about best practices on motorcycle safety. It needed to be updated. Right now they're in the process of going through and trying to update that. And I can tell you a lot of your states and a lot of your traffic safety people across the country, this is kind of a guide, a how-to guide. You know, when they start looking at ways to do and change and increase motorcycle safety in the state, they'll start thumbing through there and go, well, you know, we're not doing this yet. Or maybe this is a good idea. Or we haven't tried this. So that's just a good general guide of motorcycle safety programs and activities that they can undertake to help improve motorcycle safety in their state. This is MOM. We all have a soft spot in our hearts for MOM, but this is the Motorcycle Operator Manual. So we've partnered with the American Association of Motor Vehicle Administrators to develop a motorcycle operator manual and a knowledge test to go along with it for testing. So we're hoping that's going to be out in fall of 2013. So you can tell already, just as I've gone through these slides, 2013 sounds like a pretty active year. There's a lot of stuff that should come out and happen in this year, and so we're looking forward to seeing what they get. We're talking about state adoption of the model national standards for rider training. So we're once that's worked on, they're hoping they can move that out. And they're working with Cambridge Systematics to determine the feasibility of establishing a certification accreditation process for entry-level motorcycle rider training. And so that'll be pushed out really through a lot of your state motorcycle training programs. But hopefully that'll be done in 2016. Examination of the feasibility of alcohol interlocks for motorcycles. That report's supposed to be out on 2013. Anybody ever seen a motorcycle with a blow tube on it? I got one, two, yeah. I actually went down and watched them put one on. I was kind of curious how it would work, you know, as a rider myself. And I mean, the installation process probably took about 10 or 15 minutes. You know, I thought it'd be a lot complicated, more complicated than it was. It really wasn't that big of a deal. You just got to have some kind of compartment for the unit to stay kind of dry. But the rest of the stuff, it was pretty simple. Sport bike, going to be kind of hard to find a place to put one on most of those because they just don't have a place for it. Main thing about motorcycles and breath tests, just ain't gonna be able to do a lot of rolling tests. Although I did hear a story about in California, they put one out there and they still required rolling tests. The guy took an extended tube, ran it up through his jacket, had it right there by his mouth. If it came due for a test, he just grabbed it, provided his rolling test, and went on. But I don't believe that's a real good safety feature. You can have those set up to where you can actually give the operator time to pull over the vehicle, find a safe spot, and to provide a breath sample and not have to do a rolling test. We're also doing some studies on sight distance training. That's actually completed. I don't believe the report is out yet. I personally think as a rider, sight distance and how you use your vision while riding a motorcycle is incredibly important. I know a lot of people, especially those younger riders, where are they looking when they're riding? Not too far out front, right? They get into a curve, they're focused like 30, 40, 50 feet out front. You know, and as we know, experienced motorcyclists, that's not what we're doing. We're wanting to look what? Up as far as we can. We want to be out as far as we can, into the curve as far as we can. And where does the bike go? Generally where our eyes go, right? So sight and vision is so important. So can we figure out a way to better train people during training programs on how to use their eyes to safely operate a motor vehicle, a motorcycle? I think so. And so we're going to kind of see how that works out. All right, we talked about endorsements. All right, there was a study up in the state of Washington where they actually started impounding motorcycles if you were not properly licensed. Can you do that, law enforcement, can you do that in the state of Texas right now? Yes. So, I mean, that's something that could be done tomorrow. Motorcyclists, anybody want their motorcycle on the back of a flatbed or hanging from a chain on the tow truck because you didn't take the time to go get your motorcycle endorsement? No? Nobody here? Okay. So, you know, get your motorcycle endorsement. Spend the $150, $200, take the training, and get your motorcycle endorsement in the state of Texas. But that report is being finalized, and we'll see how that did down there. They're also looking at in Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico changed their law to .02 for intoxication. Commercial drivers in the state and across the country, what is theirs for legal intoxication? .04. So there are already some existing deals out there showing that if you're driving a commercial vehicle, big vehicle, you can impact people really quickly with that vehicle. Maybe you shouldn't be able to drink as much alcohol as a four-wheeler. Now, to me personally, 04 would be great for all the four-wheelers too, you know. But they're actually looking into seeing if dropping the impaired driving down to 02 for a motorcyclist actually helps reduce it. All right, there was an impaired driving crackdown. That's going to be set down in 2004. Once again, we've had a couple of studies that were affecting impaired driving. Why? Because when you look at the statistics, about 30 to 40% of the motorcycle fatalities are legally intoxicated. And so as long as you see those numbers up there, there's going to be people looking to see how they can affect those numbers. Also, spring of 2015, effect of entry-level motorcycle rider training on motorcycle crashes. I know in several of the meetings that we've been in, there's been the question, does motorcycles training actually affect safety? Anybody ever asked that question? Has anybody ever found the exact answer? You know, and how hard is it to judge it? You know, you would like to see that if you went through the motorcycle training course, that all those people that went through that course had a lower crash rate than the people that didn't go through the course. Well, this is something they're trying to get at to see if that's occurring. And if it's not occurring, what are those things that we can do to actually affect that change? This was the cool study. I think, was Roy, is this one you asked about? Yeah, Roy actually wanted, he said, I want to get signed up. They actually took 160 motorcyclists and wired them. You know, so they had bells and whistles and lights and cables and cameras and and they actually just were on their bikes, and they ran the data on how they rode and where they rode and how fast they rode, which sometimes may not be a real good thing, you know. And so we're waiting to see this real world study on how it comes back and looks like as far as how do people operate their motorcycle. And that, you know, that kind of gives you that baseline on where do we go from here? What training do we need to change? What do we need to adjust to actually affect these people? These are some quick studies, and I'm running long, Patty. I'm sorry. Feasibility study and demonstration on collective behavior. This is already out. This is the page for the study, and you can do it. There's also a study on improving crash avoidance and enhancing motorcyclist conspicuity. I always have trouble with that word too. This study's out, and those are the links to those different studies. There's a study of motorcycle rider braking control behavior. You know, do you use your front brake or you use your back brake? Sometimes it's real important how you use those things. And there's sometimes you may want to use one more than the other depending on road conditions, you know. So all of that been written up. So I banged it out pretty quick, 1 minute and 45 seconds long. But I do appreciate the opportunity. During the break or during lunch, if you've got any questions, I'll be glad to talk to you. I'm always available to you in the Fort Worth Regional Office, and I thank you for the opportunity to come and meet with you today.